On one particularly pleasant day in Hogsmeade, I happened upon a board game based on the game of Quidditch. Herein lies the review for Angry Dad Gamer of the Quidditch board game, Snitch Snatchers.
Hey everyone, Angry Dad Gamer back with a new season, and to kick things off, I'm reviewing a board game that just got an expansion a couple of months ago, Golden Snitch, Snitch Snatcher, the Quidditch Game. Quidditch has been portrayed in the movies. The first one where they went kind of cheap, and at the theme parks, which has done really well at Universal, and even in real life, where people play without the benefit of magic items or flying brooms. The board game tries to capture the fun and excitement, not just of the game, but the magical twists that can occur in a game that can only happen at Hogwarts. Does it work? Well, the only thing missing is an actual bludger, which in the books flies around and tries to knock players around, but honestly wouldn't work as a game mechanic unless you had some kind of robotic Spiro wobbling thing around the board. And frankly, that mechanic has been tried, and it's a little lame. The good news is, Golden Snitch has just enough twists and turns to make replayability a real selling point. The overall game mechanic employs cards for skill points and interrupts, and other ways to screw over your opponent, and a sort of blend of backgammon, chess, and checkers, with disc-playing pieces moving around the board trying to score points. Of course, there is a Golden Snitch, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Play movement is well done here, again, like chess, but much simpler. Each turn you can pick a skill card or an action card from either deck, but each action card might have a skill cost, so it behooves you to load up on skills at first. Color codes also matter, as some are wizarding spells, some are offensive tricks, others are for defense. It's pretty interesting to develop a strategy here, as you might pull nothing but skills if you have a good initial hand, but there are action cards that require no skill, just a dice roll. The dice are used sparingly, but in key areas like an action card or the Golden Snitch. But wait, we'll get there. Anyway, you try to get the quaffle to the goal, and it's not nearly as easy as it sounds, because you can get knocked off by another offensive player or blocked by defensive players, including a goalkeeper, or an action card can really turn the tables. It all depends, and it makes it really infinitely replayable. But, just like the real game of Quidditch, everything changes if a player plays one of the 6 possible Golden Snitch cards. That is, each player has 6 in their deck. What's in the box? Of course, there's the game board itself, which folds out a bit, and it's large, and if it's brand new, might need some weights to help keep it completely flat. The instructions, of course, printed to look antique, but they're in full color, and they look really great. There are also some cardboard towers you'll assemble by punching them out and folding, and they have little adhesive strips to keep them together, but they're lightweight and will fall down easily. Then some cards for each team. In the basic set, it's Gryffindor versus Slytherin, and you have skill cards and action cards. Oh, and one really lightweight, rather cheap 6-sided die. The game pieces are plastic tokens with stickers, but they're good quality and they should last forever. You've got beaters, chasers, keepers, a couple of seekers, a quaffle, and a Golden Snitch. The action cards sometimes require skill cards for defense, offense, or wizardry. Some require a lot of skill, some 0. And then there's the Golden Snitch card. To give you an example of how these work, at the beginning of our game, you get 4 action cards. Now, the first thing you can do in your turn is to draw a card. Since you can draw either an action or a skill, the strategy at first is to load up on skills, but it depends on your hand. If you have an action card with a 0, you can play it. Some of those require a dice roll. A good example of how the game uses cards to simulate the real Quidditch game is this card to steal the quaffle, which requires no skills, and just you grab the quaffle with your closest chaser. Another action that doesn't need skill but requires a dice roll is this chaser retreat card, where whoever rolls the higher number has to move their chaser back 5 spaces. It's a risk, but it requires no skill. So there's some of the balance that's in the game. Things get really dicey with some of the wizardry you can play in the game as well. I'll leave those surprises when you actually play. Suffice it to say, the mechanic of drawing a card each round but making you choose between action and skill is a clever and fun one, and it keeps you on your toes. Also, you place your skill cards face up, but you hide your actions, and that makes plenty of sense if you play. So the game is pretty straightforward. Players arrange their pieces like a little soccer match with offensive lines up front and defense in the back. You've got spots for your decks on each team, and all your action and skills are shuffled and ready to go. Beaters are defense and can move only 2 spaces, only in straight lines, and can make L shapes. Chasers are offense, and they can move 3 spaces diagonally only, but they can zigzag, unlike a bishop in chess. Keepers can move 2 spaces diagonally, but must stay in a sort of end zone here or in the goal spots. Now, here's an illegal move because a chaser can't knock another chaser off his pitch or position. They have to go around, but beaters can knock a chaser off, especially if carrying the quaffle, in which case they get sidelined until the next turn and return to their starting point at the beginning of the game. Goals are scored by moving a chaser into the goal space. That's 10 points, just like in Quidditch. But also just like Quidditch, the Golden Snitch has a good chance of showing up. There are 6 cards for the Snitch in each player's action deck, so if played, the Snitch appears on either end, depending on who plays it. It'll appear behind your goal. Playing the Snitch doesn't count as your turn, so you play it and actually draw another card. Then you roll the dice to see how far your Seeker moves forward towards the Snitch, but there's an added twist to catching the sucker. You must roll an exact number once you're within 6 spaces. If you roll a 5 and it's 3 spaces away, too bad. Also, my hair is in this shot. And that's basically it. As you can tell, it's a well-balanced game with just enough luck and strategy to keep people from flipping the table. Gameplay is usually around half an hour or so, but with the expansion pack you can introduce tournament play. Only 2 players or 2 teams can play at once, but the expansion adds Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff pieces so you can play off to see whichever house wins the final tourney cup. My only gripe is you only get a scorecard with the expansion, but that's more important when you have a tournament anyway. Just get a pencil and paper or use a simple generic scoring app to keep track otherwise. Did the game make me mad? Well, once I quit worrying about the ornamental towers, it did not. This is a fantastic game that's worth the purchase for anyone who enjoys tabletop games, and if they're a Harry Potter fan, it's just a delight, because it really captures the spirit of Quidditch while skipping some of the randomness of the bludger. That sucks, but this game does not. Now, you can find this online for $90, but that's pretty much because from what I can tell, you can only buy it at Universal theme parks. That's where we bought ours, plus the expansion pack, which lets you play again as Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff. Even at that price, it's a lot of fun, but honestly, if you're a real Harry Potter fan, I recommend visiting the parks anyway, enjoying a butterbeer, and budgeting in about $50 or so for the basic game, and about another $20 for the expansion.
Till we get back here, you pass. Can they stay to winter?